Hi guys, welcome to a new year. My name is Brittany. Welcome if you are new. Today I decided to do something new, something I'm going to be trying out. Hopefully it works well. I have no idea. But one of the things I want to try is called a book and a movie. So today I'm going to give you the entire plot summary of a book, and then we're going to discuss the movie that is like an adaptation of the book. Obviously, typically the book is better than the movie, and then just having a little brief discussion and the difference. Sometimes the nuances are the same. I'm not sure if it's going to sound redundant in terms of me basically telling the story twice with just like a little bit of nuances, but today I'm going to talk to you guys today about the whole plot summary of the book and the movie for Coraline. So starting with the book. First, in the book, we are introduced to this manor house, which Coraline, her mother and father, are moving into. This manor was a estate in South England that has now been divided up into different apartments. Specifically, she knows that there are 3 distinct apartments that she's aware of, but she's also told and informed that there are other apartments in this house, this collective house, that she has not visited and has not seen the tenants of. Coraline and her parents move into this house, and Coraline decides to go exploring. One of the places that she goes to is the drawing room, which would formerly in America be considered like a living room. It houses all of her grandmother's old like antiqued furniture that she's not really allowed to touch. It's kind of giving like couch covered in plastic type vibes. Coraline then gets bored of being in the house and she leaves and she explores the grounds around where this manor house is, and she notices and sees some things. One of the things that she notices or meets is her neighbors. One is Miss Spinks and Mrs. Forceful that stay in the unit below her, and then there's this crazy old man, which she has given him the name of, who stays above her, and somehow in this very vague way he is in charge of orchestrating this rat circus, this rat performance. Coraline, after meeting her neighbors, she ventures off into the land and she notices that there's a tennis court, that there's this very strange well that has been boarded up, as well as she sees animals like snakeskin and skunks and rocks that look like frogs, but more noticeably she meets and crosses this black cat. Once we understand Coraline's home life, a lot of the things that we know is that 1, she's most likely on summer break from school. She's around the age of 12, I believe, probably like preteen age, and utterly she is bored. Her parents don't really have time for her, and we're hearing the book in the perspective of a preteen, so parents don't have time for her. They're trying to keep her busy and keep her out of their hair because they're working on computers and they are pretty much fully devoted to the task at hand and do not really have time to entertain her. So one day, as normal, her parents are busy working on the computers and Coraline is kind of going stir crazy. It is raining outside, and not the light drizzling type of rain, but it is pouring, thundering outside, so she can't go outside and just explore the ground. So she's kind of going stir crazy, and her parents give her these like innocuous tasks as to go around and count how many doors are in this house, or how many windows, or how many door handles, things of that nature, just to keep her mind occupied. Eventually, Coraline counts everything and gets bored once again. She asks her mother, can she go into the drawing room, which is kind of low-key kind of forbidden for her to go into because they don't want her to mess up anything. Her mother agrees, like, you can go into the drawing room as long as you do not mess up anything, don't break nothing, don't disturb anything. She goes into the drawing room and she notices a door, which she's just like, interesting. She has this assumption that the other door is kind of an entryway to the other flats in this manor house that she is not privy to. She only knows about the 3, hers and the other 2 neighbors. She's very interested. So she asks her mom, like, hey, do you have the key to this door? Because she kind of thinks that she can go into the other flat, the other apartment, and just like explore the area. Her mother is a little bit perturbed by her asking her for another thing, but eventually her mother takes this black key, goes to the door that's in the drawing room and opens it, only to reveal a brick wall. And Coraline is just like, okay. Her mother leaves, walks away, but her mother leaves the door unlocked. Coraline calls out to her like, hey, you're gonna lock the door, and her mother's just like, what's the point? It's a brick wall. Yeah. Life continues. Coraline goes to sleep that night, and at night she's sleeping in bed and she hears this creaking sound. Of course, the curiosity gets the best of her. She gets up and she walks. She hears that the sound is coming from the drawing room. She walks into the drawing room and she sees the shape of a thin, giant woman. When she goes to turn off the light, the woman vanishes. It's gone. But she sees that the door is slightly cracked open. Eventually, Coraline goes back to her room and dozes off to sleep, and she has dreams of these black shapes that are small. They're avoiding light and they're singing.
We are small, but we are many. We are many, we are small. We were here before you rose. We'll be here when you fall.
Again, the next day, Coraline wakes up and the rain has stopped, and she goes on a walk. She goes to Mrs. Fink and Miss Forceful's house once again and notices and realizes that they were entertainers at once upon a time. They used to be famous, and she identifies herself as an explorer. She also comes across the crazy old man who lives upstairs, and he says, "Hey Coraline, the mouse have a message for you." And she's just like, "What's the message?" "Don't go through the door." He asks her, like, "Does that mean anything to you?" And she says no, it does not. Back at home, her parents are still dismissive. It's kind of like her parents are this analogy of just like boredom. Like everything's gray, they make disgusting food, they pay no attention to her, everything's just blah, because we're hearing it from her perspective also. And so she decides, I'm leaving again, I'm going to go see Miss Fink and Miss Forceful. She goes to their apartment. They have several dogs also, just to remember. They are in love with dogs, and they offer her some tea, and she says yes. After she drinks her tea, they ask can they read her tea leaves, like the tea leaves in her cup, and they say, "Oh my goodness, you're in horrible danger." And Coraline is really not fazed, is really not perturbed or bothered by this at all, and they proceed to give her a stone that has a hole in it. And Coraline just keeps it in her pocket. She asks, like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" And they just said, "It's supposed to keep you safe, I think." Later on, Coraline is getting ready to go back to school, and her mother says, like, "Hey, we need to go school shopping for clothes." They go shopping for clothes, and one of the things that Coraline wants, she wants to stand out. She wants to be a little bit different. She doesn't want to look like everybody else. And she wants specifically these blue gloves. These blue gloves that she's like looking at, and her mother tells her no. She's going to get the standard things, like her uniform or just classic things that children need to have. And this is just like kind of like another notch on the belt of all the things that her parents aren't that she wants them to be. And she's kind of exasperated at this point and very like dull with life because it's very monotonous and boring. After going school shopping, her mother and Coraline return to the house. Her father is off doing something, who knows, and there's no food in the house for lunch. Coraline's mother says, "Hey, I'm gonna go to the store, do you want to come with me?" Coraline says, "No, I'm good." "You can have that, don't want to go with you." So her mother leaves, and Coraline decides to go and search for the black key to the door from the drawing room. At this time, she still has a pebble with the hole in it, finds the keys and goes to the door. And when she opens it, somehow the door was locked, but now she opens it with the key and there's no more bricks behind the door. It's kind of like this void, this black void. In Coraline's mind, she is going to explore the other flat, the other side. And she's like, okay, cool, there's no brick wall, I'm gonna walk through. And she proceeds to do so. She gets to the other home and she's like back in the drawing room. And the room seems like practically identical. She hears somebody calling her name, which sounds like her mother, and she walks into the kitchen and she meets this lady, and her skin was like paper white, and she was taller and thinner, but she looked like her mother. But there was this one distinguishable fact about this other mother. This other mother had button eyes. The other mother was very inviting. She gave her lunch, like a delicious feast that she made for her, and she invited Coraline, "Hey, after you finish eating, you can go to your room and play with the rats." Coraline finishes her food and she goes to her other bedroom, because this flat is identical to her original flat, but there's certain nuances that are different. The room that she's in now, everything is like bright and colorful. She has toys. She has like it's very inviting. It feels like a child's room, whereas her original room was gray. She just moved in. It wasn't very decorated. It was pretty bland. She bends down and looks under her bed, and she sees about 40 eyes staring at her. And she notices that, oh, these are the rats. They come out and they start singing.
We have teeth, we have tails, we have tails, we have eyes. We were here before you fell. You will be here when we rise.
She says, that sounds so familiar. I can't place where I heard that from. Interesting. After she hangs out with the rats and hears their little song, she walks out of the other home to explore the grounds around where she lives. And she stumbled upon the black cat. The black cat that she met on the first day that she moved into her original apartment. But this black cat is different because he can talk. When he can talk, second of all, he's very like smart aleck, like he knows it all, and very gives the air that like, oh yeah, Coraline, you're dumb. It's a very quick conversation. He goes off and Coraline decides to go see Miss Spinks and Miss Forceful. She walks into their flat because the door is slightly ajar and she's greeted by a dog. One of Mrs. Spinks and Mrs. Forceful's dogs that they are just devoted to and that they love so much. He also has button eyes as well, and he invites her in. He asks, hey, do you have a ticket to the show? And she's just like, what ticket are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. It's just like, okay, whatever, come on. She walks into their apartment and it turns into this theater, this musical theater type of vibes that has performances, and all of the chairs in this theater sit dogs, like dogs are sitting there, and they are captivatingly watching Miss Spinks and Miss Forceful perform on stage. Coraline is directed to her seat in the front of the theater and she is watching. They are doing, or like Miss Spinks and Miss Forceful are on one-wheeled bicycles or juggling balls, and then they unbuttoned their fluffy round coats and opened them, but their coats weren't all that opened. Their faces open too, like empty shells, and out of the empty, fluffy, round bodies stepped two young women with button eyes. Coraline was a little perturbed by this, but then she was just like, I'ma just chill. She leans over to the dog who is sitting next to her and she asks, how long does this show go on for? And the dog replies,
forever.
Coraline eventually decides, okay, I had enough of this. She gets up and she walks out of the theater / Miss Spinks and Miss Forceful's apartment. Eventually, Coraline goes back to her other home, and her other mother with the button eyes say, hey, you can stay here forever. And Coraline says, what? I don't know. She's like, the only thing that you have to do is you have to get button eyes. You have to give me your eyes and take button eyes. And she's just like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. And her other father is also there. He doesn't really play a major role. He's more of like reserved and just kind of as support to the other mother. But he tells her, you know, it won't hurt at all. And one of the things that Coraline mentions, first off, is she says that when adults say that something's not going to hurt, it usually does. Coraline says, I'm good. I'm gonna leave. And the other mother says, okay, have a good time, and I wait for you to come back again. Coraline goes back through the black void passageway. She gets to her original home and she locks the door. At this point, Coraline's mother and father are missing. They're nowhere to be found. Her mother can't find them. They're not there. As the day goes on, she's kind of taking care of herself. She makes herself something to eat and she misses her parents, so she goes and she sleeps in their bed. That night, she is woken up because the black cat, the original black cat in the real reality, who cannot speak, has come into her apartment and has woken her up. She asks him, do you know where my mother and father are? And he gives her a nod. He saunters off, very much in a nonverbal cue as to, hey, follow me. He walks to the end of the hallway of her original apartment to a mirror. Coraline walks up and she sees her parents behind the glass. They have wrote, help us, against the mirror glass, but it's backwards. Coraline tries to hit the glass, tries to force it to break, but she only succeeds at breaking the glass mirror and it shatters into a million pieces on the floor. Then at this point, Coraline does what some of us would do, is she tries to call the police. That is not successful whatsoever. After calling the police and the police not believing her that somebody just out of nowhere kidnapped her parents, she decides, okay, I have to be brave, and she kind of conjures up this childhood memory that she and her father kind of went through of how he was like brave, and she's like, I need to be brave for them. She takes the pebble with the hole in it that is still in her pocket, and she goes to see the other mother. Coraline goes to the other side, and then on site she's asking the other mother like, hey, where are my parents? The other mother is deflecting. She's like, I don't know where they are. Maybe they just didn't love you enough. Maybe they just left you. I don't really know. I guess they don't really care about you. I'm so sorry. And Coraline, at first, there's this part in which she is starting to believe that her parents just like vanished and don't care about her, but she's just like, no, 1 + 1 is not equaling 2, and she's like, I'm gonna double down, and I don't trust her. The other mother proceeds to tell one of her minions, which is also the rat, which we find out, she tells one of the rats to go to the original house and find the black key, because Coraline left the black key at the other house. The rat comes back with the key and hands it to the other mother with the button eyes. After the other mother gets the key from the other side, she kind of saunters off doing whatever she does, and Coraline goes back to the drawing room trying to kind of like open up the door again to get back to her original side, and she notices that the door is locked, and the drawing room looks identical to her original home except one thing. There's a snow globe on the mantle of the fireplace in the drawing room that has not been there before. Coraline then proceeds to go outside. She is exploring the grounds, trying to figure out like what is she going to do, and she meets the black cat again. The black cat gives her some advice. One, we find out that the other mother hates the black cat. She doesn't like him at all. She doesn't like that he finds entrances into this world that he's not supposed to find. He's sneaky and he's silent. And the black cat gives Coraline some advice, and he tells her, hey, the other mother likes games. She likes games. She goes back into the other home, goes to bed, wakes up again to go exploring again. She's trying to figure out, where is she? Where is this? And how to get back to where she was. She starts walking and walking until she's like in this white void, this white space of nothingness. The cat comes back up, and he instructs her that the other mother has not created any world outside of the world that she knows, because she only made enough world to entice you. Just like, go back to the house. Long story short, it's like walking the globe, but it's a small world. Coraline goes back in to challenge the other mother as to where are my parents? Where they at? The other mother is sitting down. She's eating beetles. She's just eating beetles like they sunflower seeds. And Coraline makes the other mother upset. She calls her sick, evil, and weird. And the other mother starts changing from this image that looks like her mother to this very tall, thin, decrepit looking thing. She gets upset about Coraline, saying that she's being very rude and very disrespectful, and she grabs her up. She walks her down the hall and throws her into the hallway mirror, similar to the mirror that she saw her parents in. So now Coraline is behind this mirror, and this very much like, it's behind a mirror, but it feels like a coat closet type of vibe. And the other mother says, you can come out when you learn manners, and she just leaves her in there. Coraline thinks that she's just alone in this coat closet, for lack of a better explanation, but she eventually realizes that she is not alone and that there are 3 other souls in there. These souls are children that the other mother has consumed, for the lack of a better term. We don't really know how, but she has literally sucked the life out of them to the point in which these souls cannot transition into like the afterlife, because 1, they don't have their eyes because the other mother has taken them, and 2, they don't even really remember their sense of identity at all. They don't remember if when they were alive, if they were a boy or a girl, or the things that they wore. They kind of like, she like literally like sucked not just their life but their identity of who they actually were. And so they're just like these voids just living in this coat closet that the other mother has simply forgotten. And Coraline makes it a mission that now she has 5 people to save. She has to find the eyes of the souls of these 3 children, as well as her mother and father. And she gets tired and she got AIDS, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep. So Coraline goes to sleep, and before she goes to sleep, she hears in her ear, look through the stone. I'm not sure if it's the next day. Time is not really provided to us, but eventually Coraline is woken up and taken out of the mirror by the other mother. The other mother proceeds to make her breakfast, make her food, like this very delicious, decadent breakfast. And she's sitting down eating breakfast, Coraline, and her mother is not eating. Something to mention, Coraline's mother doesn't eat at any of the meals. She just kind of stares hungrily. Yeah, that's not unsettling. Yeah. And Coraline decides to tell other mother everything. She's very upfront and honest in a way that I don't know if I would be. But she tells the other mother that, hey, I met the other children in the coat closet. Yeah, and I think that you and I should play a game. And the other mother's just like, okay, let's play a game. Like, what's the stakes? Coraline says, if I lose at this game, I will allow you to give me button eyes and I'll stay here forever. If I win, you let me go and you leave me alone. And if you break that promise, you have to lose your right arm, your right hand. Your right hand gotta go. Gotta leave. It's gone. The other mother's just like, yeah, let's do that. Coraline says, if I find the souls, find the 3 other children, as well as my mother and my father, if I find these 5 people, I win. The other mother's just like, okay. So Coraline proceeds to start in her bedroom. Her bedroom is filled with toys, and these toys are animated. Like they talk and they move on their own. It's very much Toy Story vibes. And she goes in, she sees them moving around, and she looks through the pebble. This is the first time that she looks through the pebble in her bedroom because she remembers somebody saying look through the stone right before she goes to sleep last night. So she's in her room, she looks through the stone, and she realizes that everything, when she looks through it, is just black and white. It's like this void of color, it's gray, except this one little marble in her toy box that is glowing. She picks it up, and when she picks it up, she can finally hear the voice of one of the children that she met, or that she met in the coat closet, for lack of a better term. And she's like, okay, cool. She proceeds to leave her room, and then she is like smacked in the face with this sandstorm, this storm that is kind of pushing her and it's like needles and glass in her face, and she is screaming at the other mother to play fair. Coraline eventually gets out of her house, and she goes to Mrs. Spinks and Miss Forcible's apartment. She walks in, and the theater looks kind of abandoned. And on the ceiling, there are these things up there that are hairless, jelly-ish wings like bats and hung like spiders. These creatures that are just hanging there. She looks through the stone again, and she notices something glowing on the stage. She walks up to the stage and she climbs onto the stage, and she notices this sack. It almost looks like a spider egg case, but inside of it are 2 heads. They are like intertwined and interlocked with their appendages. She proceeds to take her hands and she sticks it inside of this gooey membrane-y substance, and she notices that there is a marble that is encapsulated by this 2-headed creature's hands that she is trying to pull the marble out of. She pulls the marble out, and as she is doing so, she is hoping, she is praying, like, do not open your eyes. Just, creature, do not open your eyes, because the creature's eyes are closed and it's creepy and she wants to leave. The creature, okay, long story short, the creature opens its eyes and it's just like, please don't take it. Like, that's mine, don't take it. She eventually takes it. She runs. The bats, the jelly-like substance creatures that were on the ceiling, they were like these redeformed dog bat creatures, and they don't touch her, they don't bother her. She gets to walk out, she runs out, she's outside, and she notices that the world that she is in is starting to become formless. The house that she is known to live in is starting to shrink or flatten, like things are deteriorating on the foundation of what this world is built upon. The other mother comes up to her and hands her a gray key, and she tells her, oh yeah, here, you're gonna need this. You're gonna need this, here you go. She hands her the key, and Coraline proceeds to go walk back into her original house. She goes to her room and she notices that there's like this latch in her bedroom that goes to the cellar underneath the house. She opens the latch and she's walking down. She's trying to see through the pebble, the stone, to see if there's another soul down there. And she gets to the bottom and she notices that her other father is down there. He doesn't look well. He doesn't look like he doesn't look like he's thriving. And he starts giving Coraline some information. One of the information is that one, he is a creature that the other mother has just created as a pawn in her scheme to lure Coraline to this world. And eventually he starts to feel that the other mother is starting to control him, and he is supposed to attack Coraline to stop her and preclude her from advancing in her mission. And Coraline decides to go up to him, and she grabs his eyes and rips his button eyes out. Then he is kind of just scrambling across. I'm sorry, that's not funny. It reminds me of the scene from Kill Bill where the lady with the one eye, she get her other eye taken out, and she's just like all over the trailer just trying to figure out her life. And he is screaming because he can't see, his eyes are taken out, and he's just trying to feel for her because he knows that he's on this mission to try to hurt her even though he doesn't want to. But at the same time, the other mother has control over him to do what she says. Eventually Coraline starts the climb back up the stairs to get out of the cellar, and the other father hears her. He hears her walking up the steps, and that's his one line. He takes a beeline for the stairs, and she's running up trying to get to the top. Eventually she gets to the top of the cellar. Just before he does, she slams the cellar door closed, and he's locked down in there, and she's good. She's okay. She's not great, but she's okay. When she gets outside and she decides to go to the crazy old man's apartment where she's never been before. She walks up there to the top apartment, and she sees these rats again, who again are the minions of the other mother. And they're singing another song. Oh my goodness, they're singing another song. And the song that they're singing now is,
we have eyes, we have nerves, we have tails, we have teeth. You will get what you deserve when we rise from underneath.
Coraline eventually starts to have a conversation with the crazy old man about everything being perfect. The crazy old man is telling her, hey, you can stay here and you have everything you want. You can have ice cream for breakfast every single day. You wouldn't have to do homework. Life would be easy and blissful, and you would have everything you wanted. And Coraline, has the wherewithal and the knowledge to know that's not what anybody wants. Nobody wants everything that they want, because then it just takes the fun out of wanting anything. So she's just like, no, I'm good. I don't want to stay here. Can you give me the last pebble of the last child? So she's on her way to get the last soul for this child, and this fat rat steals the ball and he runs. She is running after this rat, trying to catch up to him. The fat rat gets away. She is at this point defeated and exasperated by the fact that she has tried so hard to succeed at this point, and she feels like she's lost. But coming in to save the day is the black cat, who comes and kills the fat rat and takes the last soul that she needs. And he reminds her, like, I don't like rats at the best of times, so best believe I don't like rats at the worst of times. So the fat rat, he gone. So now Coraline has all the 3 souls that she needs. The last thing she has to do is find her parents. She goes back to her other home, and the house has flattened more. It has sunk towards the ground even further, and this world is deteriorating even more. The black cat now is scared. He is terrified because all of the entrances that he was aware of how to get in and out of this world, the other mother has closed. He has blocked him off from basically exiting, and he's scared. He don't want to stay here. And Coraline picks up the black cat, puts him on her shoulder, and tells him, we're going home. don't worry about it. We're going home. She goes back into her other home and goes to the drawing room where the other mother is sitting down. She says, okay, did you find everybody that you needed? And Coraline's like, yeah, I found everybody that I needed. And the other mother's like, okay, show me. Coraline proceeds to about to show her the 3 marbles of the children, and the other mother tries to sneakily take them from her. She's like, hold up, wait a minute. Coraline knows at this point that the other mother is not a woman of her word whatsoever and is not going to play fair. And Coraline says, I know I still have to find my mother and my father, and I know where they are. And the other mother's just like, where are they? Where could they be? And she's just like, they are in the door of the drawing room, like to the passageway back to my home. That's where they are. Because Coraline can't open it because the door is locked. So the other mother's just like, oh my goodness. Are you sure they're in there? She's like, oh yeah, of course they're sure. Of course I'm sure they're in there. So the other mother walks over to the door that is on the wall that leads her back to reality. She opens it and she peers in and she says, oh my goodness, silly girl. Your parents aren't in there. They're not there. And Coraline's like, yeah, I know that. So Coraline decides to take the cat and throws the cat on the other mother's face. The cat is scratching her, crawling at her. Coraline runs quickly, grabs the snow globe off of the mantle, and runs into the open door to her real reality. She goes in and she yells back for the cat, like, come on, like, we gotta go. The cat eventually lets the other mother, he stops beating up the other mother and runs after Coraline, and they're in this tunnel. The one last thing that they have to do is they have to close the door. They have to close the door, and the other mother is pulling on the door with all her might. She is trying to get it open. She is hungry at this point. She is starving and determined to get Coraline back where she wants it. At this point, Coraline has the 3 souls that are in like marble form, as well as the snow globe and the cat, as well as the pebble and the key, and the black key that she took out of the door that the other mother just unlocked. With the strength of the other children and somehow her parents, they are able to close the door, and she gets into the drawing room. She locks the door. Coraline locks the door to the drawing room of her original home. Somehow, some way, her parents are home. Parents are home, and they are not saying anything about their time that they've been missing. They're not saying anything, and she's just like, Coraline thinks we're all good. I'm home. I can live my life. And she goes to sleep. Coraline goes to sleep, but the other mother starts like taunting her. Coraline is keeping the key around her neck, and she knows that I cannot keep this key around my neck forever. Somehow, some way. The other mother allows her right hand to squeeze between the crevices of the doors to get to Coraline's reality because she's trying to get back the key. And Coraline at this point is keeping the key around her neck, which she knows that she can't do for a long time. So with the help of the cat, she kind of sets up this trap for the other mother, or luring her to the well that is outside of Coraline's home, where the other mother's right hand is in hunt of this key and falls into the well. The other children at this point, they are finally able to die in peace and go to the other side. And that's pretty much how the book ends. Now, let's talk about the movie. The movie has a little bit of nuances. I think of like the base level being the same, but there are some things that change. So Coraline, the movie, starts with the introduction to Pink Palace Apartments. The opening scene is Coraline and her parents moving in. They have this old man who is doing stretches on the ceiling, and we have ladies that are in the basement that she lives in. This is more so a very large house that again has been divided into 3 apartments, kind of like basement level, main floor, and then attic kind of a vibes, like 3 levels is kind of a vibe. And Coraline decides that, hey, I'm in this new place. My parents just moved. I'm gonna go exploring. She goes exploring. She's like walking on this trail in the woods, and she's noticing that it feels like somebody's following her. She keeps walking until she's startled. She's startled by this sound, and then she is scared, and then she realizes that it's a black cat, and she's just like, okay, Coraline is going searching, and her main goal of searching is she wants to find this like infamous well that is somewhere near her house. She's walking around and she is looking for a well, but she can't find it. She doesn't know where it is until this stark figure on a moped with a welding mask, and he drives down this mountain like directly towards Coraline, and she's very startled, like, who are you and why are you scaring me, and why is the helmet that you have a welding mask? I'm pretty sure there's a specific name, but it was very much like, what is going on? Coraline and this unknown person at this time has this very weird and peculiar conversation, and he tells Coraline that the well that you're looking for, that is so many feet deep that even during the daytime you can see stars from it, well, you're standing directly on top of it. And she's just like, oh, okay, let me move. And we meet YB. This is the boy on this moped. At this point, Coraline is still exploring, and then the scenes change to her being at home. And she's telling her mother in passing, oh, hey mom, like I almost died today. And her mother is continuing to type on her computer, very oblivious to it. She was like, oh yeah, you did? And she's just like, yeah, I almost fell in a well. And her mother's just like, okay, cool. Her mother's like not fully paying attention to her because her mother is busy. She's working on some type of booklet about plants. Her mother is sitting at the table writing on her computer, and she hands Coraline this package, and she says, some boy named YB left you this package on the front step. Here you go. Coraline opens the package and she notices that it's this doll that has button eyes that looks exactly like her. Coraline starts taking this doll everywhere she goes, and Coraline is also very bored. So she starts to try to annoy her parents, and they give her meaningless tasks like count the doors in this house, count how many window sills we have, how many door handles are in here. Eventually, she goes into the drawing room and she notices this small door, just this like random small door on the wall. She bugs her mother like, hey, like where does the door open to? Like where does it open to? And her mother is annoyed. Her mother's like, I'm trying to get work done. I'm trying to be productive, and you're asking me, the vibe was like, you're asking me stupid questions. Coraline's mother says, I will open the door and show you what's behind it, but after I do so, don't talk to me. You have to let me work. You cannot disrupt me. And Coraline agrees. Her mother goes to the drawer, sifts through 50 million keys to find the key that she needs. She goes to the drawing room, opens the door, only to reveal a brick wall. Yeah. Coraline, at this discovery of this brick wall, is kind of dissatisfied, and it's just like, what? She's trying to engage her mother in more conversation, and her mother's like, hey, we made a promise. We made a deal. If I open up the door, you would allow me to work. And her mother saunters off back into the kitchen to get some work done. That night, as Coraline is in bed, she sees a mouse from under her bed run into the drawing room. She follows the mouse into the drawing room and sees him sneak between the crack of the door that was left open. She goes over to the door and she opens the door, and this time it's not a brick wall. And it's this magenta, blue and purple void, this like passageway. As Coraline decides, hey, I'm going to go through the passageway. When she gets to the other side, she notices that the room that she's in looks very similar to the room that she just left. But this time, she's in this new house that seems vibrant and bright, and she smells food. Like delicious, delectable food. She goes in and she sees her mother, and she says, oh, hello. Until the mother turns around and she notices that this is a different type of mother. This mother has button eyes. Her mother's saying that supper is ready, and they sit down at the formal dining room table and they have like roasted chicken, and there's trains coming around with gravy and potatoes, and it's very animated and it's very bright, and it's milkshakes and all the things that are visually appealing and very exciting to Coraline, especially because at home, her original home, all the food is bland, slimy, and cooked poorly, and Coraline doesn't like it, so she's having a really good time. The other mother who she just met, she doesn't eat with her. She just kind of stares. Coraline is having a fabulous time. So at this time, the other mother confesses to Coraline that she has been waiting for her for a very long time. Eventually, Coraline says, like, I'm tired, I'm gonna go to sleep. So Coraline walks to her other bedroom and gets tucked in and she falls asleep. The other room is pink and it's colorful and it has fun toys. And when she goes to sleep and wakes up in the morning, she's back in her original bedroom. That's like gray and dusty and bland. So the next morning after Coraline wakes up, her mother tells her, hey, go outside and go meet the neighbors, entertain yourself, basically, for the day. Coraline goes outside and she notices that she has received a package that actually belongs to her neighbor upstairs. She goes upstairs to deliver the mail that was delivered incorrectly, and she starts to like knock on the door, kind of peer in, and her upstairs neighbor, which is, they don't call him the crazy old man, they call him Mr. Brewinski. He just like pops up out of nowhere. And he tells her like, hey, the mice are not ready. They're not ready for you to see the performance. They're not ready. And she's just like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not here to see a mouse performance. I'm literally here to give you this package because it was delivered to the incorrect unit. And he's just like, oh, thank you. That was the new type of cheese that I needed to possibly help the rats to perform better or something. She's just like, okay, like, that's cool, thank you. Coraline is like about to leave, she's ready to go. He's like, oh, before you go, quick question, or quick statement. The mice say, don't go through the door. Does that mean anything to you? And Coraline says, means absolutely nothing. She then goes to see Miss Spinks and Miss Forcible. She is greeted at the front door by barking dogs. As she walks through the foyer and the hallway to the main living area, she notices that all the walls are covered in these professional photos of Miss Spinks and Miss Forcible in their younger days, where they were in theater and they did performances and they had a very high life and they were very famous and popular at the time. And the other thing that she sees and notices is that Miss Spinks and Miss Forcible are very big into taxidermying their deceased dogs. Not only do they taxidermy their dogs, but they keep them on a shelf as well as create, I guess, a robe and angel wings for them. And they're all specifically stationed on a shelf, on display. It honestly kind of reminds me a little bit, not in a good way, in a bad way, of the book The Butterfly Garden. So at this time, she is sitting down with Miss Spinks and Miss Forcible, and they say, hey, would you like to have a cup of tea? They give her a cup of tea, she drinks it, and they ask, like, hey, can you read your tea leaves? The consensus is, oh yeah, you're in danger. And Coraline gets up and leaves. She's just like, you know what, that's enough. Coraline's very much like, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna visit quickly and I'm gonna leave. She walks outside and it's foggy and she senses that there's somebody around her in her presence, and then she realizes that it's YB. And YB is a very peculiar child who is scrounging around looking for slugs, which is cool. But it's very much like, YB doesn't live here. Like, he's scrounging for slugs on a property that he does not reside at. Not only doesn't he reside at this location, but specifically YB gives Coraline the instructions that his grandmother does not like him hanging out over here because she says that the Pink Palace is dangerous and it does not let YB go into this estate, this place, this home. Coraline honestly finds YB to be annoying, but he's kind of like the only person around her age that is anywhere in the vicinity, so she kind of like tolerates him to a certain extent. Later on, Coraline, typically at night, goes back to the other mother's home. And the other mother says, hey, I think you should go out to the garden and go see your father. She goes out to the garden and there's this beautiful, beautiful garden that is filled with all different types of flowers and vegetation. And it's beautiful and it's colorful and it's vibrant. The other father decides that how he gets around, how his mobility in terms of walking around the garden is on the back of a praying mantis. That also, yeah, on the back of a praying mantis. And he tells Coraline, hey, like, hop on the praying mantis, I want to show you something. They hop on and this vehicle that was ground bound now knows how to fly. right? So now they're flying over the garden, and he is showing Coraline like, hey, look, the garden is in the shape of your face. It looks like you. And Coraline is elated, and she's just like, oh my goodness, this is so cool, it's so amazing. So once Coraline, after she goes sees the garden, her mother like invites her in for dinner. They have dinner, and she's like, hey, after you go to after dinner, you can go up to Mr. Browinski's house to see the mice show, and then you can also take your new friend. And she shows and introduces Coraline to a new friend, which is this replica of YB. One, he has button eyes. Everybody has button eyes. The other mother has button eyes. The other father also has button eyes. And also, YB's mouth is sewn shut. So after dinner, Coraline gets up. She and YB go upstairs to Mr. Browinski's flat apartment, and they watch the mice show, and Coraline is utterly captivated. The mice write Coraline's name with their tails like in succinct, and it's very vibrant, and they're eating kind of candy, and everything is beautiful and it's entertaining, and she's having an amazing time. That night, Coraline then goes to sleep in her other bedroom, and she is woken up again in her original bedroom. Now, she goes back to the drawing room, and she notices that the drawing room door is locked now. So the next day, when Coraline realizes that the drawing room is closed, she and her mother, they go out again to shop for clothes for the new school year, and Coraline is looking at these blue gloves. She wants these blue gloves so badly. They are intriguing, they're different, they'll make her stand out and be more so like an individual that she's really very much so looking forward to, and her mother says no. And Coraline feels crushed by this because everything with her original parents feels like it's always no or something boring, very monotonous. After shopping for school clothes, they go back home. There's no food in the house, so Coraline's original mother decides to go to the grocery store and leaves Coraline there. After Coraline's original mother goes grocery shopping, Coraline scounges the house to find the key to the door in the drawing room. She eventually finds it. She then goes to the other side, her other reality, and she meets up with the black cat. The black cat is very much smart aleck vibes. He likes to play games with the other mother. The cat is telling Coraline like, hey, this world is not amazing. This world is not amazing. Like, it's not amazing. It's not. And Coraline isn't really getting it. After Coraline has a conversation with the black cat that this reality is not all that it's cracked up to be, she goes and visits Miss Spinks and Miss Forceful at their apartment, and is greeted by a dog who introduces and walks her in to a theater filled with a whole bunch of other dogs other than YB. YB is also in the theater, and this is the version of YB that does not talk and he has button eyes, which Coraline prefers. Coraline prefers YB not to talk. She's sitting down, and yeah, this is where I'm just like, is this really a children's movie? Because Miss Forcible is in the theater performing on stage. Miss Spinks is also there. Miss Forcible is literally performing in pasties, and there's a point in the show where Miss Forcible and Miss Spinks are both performing. They're both trying to gravitate the audience attention more than the other. So there's kind of like this battle that's going back and forth as they are performing this production. And somehow, some way, they go up to a very tall diving board, that type of thing, and they're about to jump off. They're about to jump off to these barrels that are down below, and out of nowhere their bodies kind of like break apart, like they're being zipped open, and two young women pop out, very similar to the women that are seen on the posters and the professional photos that are in the entryway of Miss Spinks and Miss Forceful's apartment in Coraline's original reality, and they just drop into these buckets. Coraline eventually gets like roped into the performance. It's this very interesting, entertaining production. And after the production, Coraline goes and she speaks to her other mother again, and the other mother's like, hey, you can stay here forever. Like, you can stay here forever. And you know what? To sweeten the deal, I will allow you to have whatever color button eyes you want. You can have whatever one you want. And Coraline's like, I don't really know about that. Let me go to sleep. I need to go to sleep. So Coraline, eventually she goes to her other room and goes to sleep. But this time, she isn't transported back to her original home. She wakes up and goes to sleep in the other home. Coraline wakes up and she goes and sees her other father. He is in this piano room and he looks different. He looks a little bit more so deformed, like something's like breaking down fundamentally. And he starts to tell Coraline a little bit more information than the other mother would like him to know. He kind of starts spilling secrets and is giving a little bit of nuance to what this world is. At this point, Coraline leaves the other father to play the piano and she walks into the world. She walks into the world trying to understand where she is, what is the reality, and what is beyond her family home. And she's walking with the black cat and she walks into a void of nothingness. There's nothing around her and she's startled. She's startled by the void of nothingness. And the black cat is trying to tell her like, hey, the other mother just has not created more world at all. And during this walk, the cat also instructs Caroline that one, he does not like rats, and two, the rats that you see in this world are the other mother's spies. Like, Coraline goes back into her home, to the drawing room. She sees the other mother, and the other mother has locked the door to her original reality, her original home. Coraline at this point, she's like demanding, like, I want to be returned, I want to go home, I don't want to be here. The other mother is getting a little irritated and flustered by her demanding, and she doesn't like Coraline's attitude. So the other mother picks up Coraline and drags her down the hallway to the hallway mirror and throws her inside. And when she throws her into the closet, she tells her, you can come out when you learn to be a loving daughter. And then Coraline, like in the book, she meets the original ghost children and they give her a little bit more insight into how Coraline has got herself lured into this predicament. And one of the things is that the other mother spies through the doll's eyes. So the doll in the beginning of the movie that Coraline used to hang around and hold all the time that looked like her, the other mother was spying on her to see in her reality, in her life, what are the things that she didn't like, what are the things that she did like, what did her life look like, what did they consist of, so that the other mother could create this falsehood of a reality to lure her into this trap. The other children ask Coraline, hey, when you leave, can you find our eyes? She's stolen our eyes and we can't rest in peace because she's taken our eyes. YB pulls Coraline out of the mirror that she's stuck in, kind of saving her. And Coraline's, oh my goodness, like, YB saved me. And she goes to unsew YB's mouth, saying like, hey, come back with me, we can go back to the other side. And YB's just like, yeah, no, I'm the other YB kind of thing. He's not talking, but he's like, I can't go because this is the YB with the button eyes. What if the YB with the button eyes and the regular YB, like, they meet up? That can happen. So he pushes her, he finds a key, he unlocks the door in the drawing room, and he pushes Coraline through it so that she can go to the other side. Coraline, eventually she makes it to her original home, but her parents are gone and the groceries that her mother was bringing back are now molded. YB shows up asking Coraline for the doll that he gave her at the beginning of the movie back, and we get a little bit more information. One of the tidbits that we learn is that the reason why that YB is not allowed at this house, at this estate, is because his grandmother, who promised for him not to visit this, had a sister. And this sister is one of the ghost children that Coraline met in the closet. Are we following? YB's grandmother's sister is one of the ghost children that Coraline is technically supposed to save. So YB comes asking for the doll back because his grandmother got mad that he gave it to her, and his grandma was just like, what are you doing? That's dumb, that's stupid. So Coraline tries to confide in YB of like everything that's going on, and YB honestly just does not believe her. He doesn't believe her and he just like runs away. Like, he takes the doll back, but he runs away, he's gone. So at this point, Coraline goes to visit Miss Spinks and Miss Forceful, and she tells them like, hey, my parents are missing. And their response to a preteen child telling them that her parents are missing is to give her a piece of candy that looks like a stone that has a hole in the middle of it. That is their response. Yeah. Coraline at this point, she's on her own. She goes home and goes to sleep to be woken up by the black cat. This is a black cat that cannot talk in like the regular reality. He saunters over to the mirror again, instructing her to look into it, and she sees her parents and they are writing on the mirror, "Help us." Coraline is trying to get them out of the mirror and she shatters and breaks the mirror. At this point, Coraline is walking around and she's noticing that there are replicas, like doll replicas of her father and her mother. And she burns the replica, like she burns the dolls. She goes to the drawing room, and one of the things that she notices is that on the mantelpiece, there's this very like family prized possession of this snow globe that they got when they went to the Detroit Zoo. Coraline knows that she really doesn't have any choice, like she can't stay in this reality, and honestly, none of the adults around her are actually very helpful. Reality. Coraline and the black cat are like, okay, we have to go back, and they go back through the tunnel to the other house. Coraline gets there and she's just like, I don't know what to do, and the cat tells her, you need to challenge the other mother, like challenge her. She loves a challenge, she loves a game. Don't think that she's gonna play fair. Challenge her. She gets to the other side. Her other mother makes her like this lovely, nice breakfast, and she says, I think that we should play a game. I want to challenge you, and I have a proposition. The other mother is very much intrigued, and she's just like, if I find the eyes and the souls of like my parents and the three children that you've held captive, you let me go. You leave me alone, or I'll just stay here forever with you. And the other mother's, yeah, let's do that. Coraline's like, can I get a hint? Can I get some help in finding them? And she says,
in the 3 wonders I've created for you, what you seek is in plain sight.
So at this time, Coraline is walking around. She still, fortunately, has the piece of candy that Miss Spinks, the real Miss Spinks and Miss Forcible has given her, that are in her pocket. And she's walking through. She walks outside into the garden that is built for her. But now this world, this garden is built to preclude her and make her at a disadvantage. And so basically the garden in so many ways starts to attack her and tries to take and steal the piece of candy with the pebble, like the pebble with the hole in it. They're trying to like steal it from her. She's getting away. Eventually her father, the other father, who is kind of on her side but is being intricately controlled by the other mothers, like, I'm sorry, but like the other mother is making me do this, and he's trying to like stop and beat up Coraline essentially. Coraline then looks through the hole in the piece of candy and she notices the first orb of eyes of one of the children, and she collects it and she's like, okay, cool, I got the first one. The second place that she goes to is the apartment of Miss Spinks and Miss Forcible, and she sees dog bats, specifically dog bats on the ceiling. On the stage, she notices that there's this big candy wrapper, and when she opens it, it is literally Miss Spinks and Miss Forcible's body, like conjoined, merged together in this very much decrepit way. What she's realizing is that when she finds, and inside of the wrapper, the second child's eyes are also there. She finds the orbs, and when she finds them and secures them and she has possession of them, the room or the area where she's in, it goes gray. At first it's bright and vibrant and beautiful, but when you take away the thing that is actually giving it life, which is basically these children's eyes, it goes gray. And as she is taking the orb and she is trying to walk away, because the orb is the child's eye and it is securely placed between Miss Spinks and Miss Forcible's hand, and she is trying to take it, they open up their eyes and they're just like, that eye belongs to me, it's mine. And she's walking backward as their arms are being like stretched, trying to secure and keep this possession of, let's just say, a marble. This possession of a marble that Coraline is trying to steal away from them. And Coraline's just like, I don't know how I'm gonna get out of here without them like attacking me. So she shines a light at the dog bats that are on the ceiling, and that disrupts them and perturbs them enough to want to attack. They're about to proceed in their attack. She like ducks down really quickly and they just beeline for the candy wrapper that has Miss Spinks and Miss Forcible in there, and she runs off and she has secured the second person's soul, life, eyes type of deal. After that, everything goes gray and she goes to Mr. Brewinski's house and it's filled with rats. they're trying to persuade Coraline to want to stay, to like stay here, to stay in this reality, just to get the other button eyes and just live with the other mother. And she's really not going for it. She is explaining over and over again like this is just simply not what she wants. So again, there's a fat rat who takes and steals the last orb, the last child's eyes, and runs away. And Coraline feels defeated, and she is saved again by the black cat, who kills the rat and gives Coraline the last eyes of the children that she needs. However, now everything has turned gray. Everything that was bright and vibrant has turned gray, and things are starting to disintegrate quickly. Coraline has pretty much all the things that she needs. She has to find her parents, but she already has an idea of where they are, and she goes back into her original home, into the drawing room, into the living room, and her mother's there. She's sitting on this couch, very creepy, giving very creepy vibes, and her mother's just like, you know, Coraline, I love you. And Coraline's like, you have a very funny way of showing it. The other mother asks, okay, where are the eyes? Where are the eyes of the children? And she's just like, oh yeah, here, I have them. The other mother is not able to get the eyes of the other children out of Coraline's hands. However, she is able to steal the pebble, the piece of candy that has a hole in it. She throws it into the fireplace of the room and it burns. And she's like, well, you don't have this anymore to help you, so tough. She then asks Coraline, okay, well, you have to save your parents, right? Where are your parents now? And Coraline instructs her like, hey, my parents are through the channel, the little hole, the channel hole, to get to the other side. The other mother takes the bait. She opens the door and she's like, Coraline, your parents aren't here. Now you have to stay with me forever. And Coraline's like, I'm not staying with you forever. I can't do it. I can't do it. And she picks up the cat and throws the cat on Coraline. I'm sorry. She throws the cat on the other mother. At this time, the cat is assaulting the other mother, and they rip out the other mother's eyes. So the other mother has no eyes. She can't see. And Coraline is so close. She's about to reach the door that already has the key in it to get to the other side. And the other mother gets pissed off. And the floor stops being a solid foundation and drops down into like a cone of a spider web. Coraline immediately drops to the very bottom of this spider web as the other mother is like dropping down as well, trying to capture Coraline. Slowly, Coraline starts crawling up this very intricate spider web, and the other mother's pissed off because she can't see. But eventually, the other mother calms down just enough to hear Coraline's movements and immediately starts hunting after her. Coraline eventually reaches the door. At this point, I don't know if we can say like the cat's good or not, but the cat has already left Coraline. They've already gone through the door. They left. They said, I don't want no. He's already gone. So Coraline is at the door and she is trying to close it, but the other mother's right hand gets through before Coraline is able to close it. And while she's closing the door, she hears the other mother say, like, I will die without her. And it's this cry of desperation, of hunger, of thirst in the most decrepit way. And before Coraline left, she was able to capture the snow globe that was on the mantle in the drawing room that housed her parents, the Detroit Zoo snow globe. So now she's back in her own reality. Her mother and father are back to normal, and the only damage is that the Detroit snow globe is broken. That night, as the kids that she has saved so that they can die in peace tell her like, hey, you're still in danger. I know that you thought that this was over, but it's not. You're still in danger. So one night, late at night, she decides to walk through the woods. Kind of ending the movie back where it started. Coraline is walking back through the woods with the key around her neck, and the right hand of the other mother is creepily like watching her and stalking her to essentially, because she wants the key back. She wants the key back aggressively. She walks through the woods to the well. She's about to take the key off of her neck and drop it into the well, and the other mother's hand runs up, grabs the key that is technically still around Coraline's neck. It's like It's halfway off of her neck, and she starts dragging her with the key on her neck, dragging her back to the house. Wybie shows up unexpectedly to save Coraline. Wybie almost falls into the well. Somehow Coraline basically saves him as well. They're like saving each other because they're fighting with a hand. Crash the hand with a stone into pieces, and they wrap the stone with the pieces of the right hand, and they tie the key around it so that it's all together, and they drop it into the well. And after very many seconds, they hear it finally slosh into water at the bottom of the well, and they cover it. And then at the end, the community made a rose garden, and a tulip garden. At the end, it made a tulip garden. So yeah, that is the Coraline, the book, and the movie. I had a fun time reading both the book and watching the movie. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more, let me know. And yeah, thank you for watching. And guess what? I'll see you next time.